we got a video about Steins Gate called This Is How You Info Dump. Steins Gate and character exposition. A lot of people, as we go into Steins Gate, on the poll, we're dooming saying, oh my god, Kaka is gonna drop this. Half the first season or something is just filler, nothing is happening, and that blows my mind because we're 3 episodes in, and there has been so much to dissect and analyze as so many things are actually happening, but I'm sure it's the Oonga Boonga audience that just can't pay attention. Let's see what Mr. Replay Value has to say about this.
Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. Exposition is one of the most important elements in storytelling, since it's how the audience is clued in to relevant information that they need to understand.
Yes, sir. Exposition, basically info, just giving you background information. Where are we? What are we doing? What's the goal? Is there any secrets? What are these characters about, right? Stuff like that. And my favorite type of exposition is show, don't tell. Maybe this isn't quite correct because obviously you do need to explicitly state some things, but I really enjoy storytelling when they actually respect the intellect of the audience and gives them just little hints here and there through action rather than explicitly saying yap, 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 yap this, because that kind of takes away from the mysteries and the guessing game.
The story. That can range from establishing the world's history through opening narration in a show like Code Geass, to Hotaro's monologue to inform us about his character in Hyoka. These are more explicit examples, and generally it's preferable to allow the audience to intuit elements about the story. That's the difference between saying, she's the queen, versus a character referring to her as Your Majesty. When exposition is at its...
Yeah, like Your Majesty, it's kind of implicit that she is the queen, rather than saying, hey, hello guys, the key's jingling to the audience. Hey, guess what? This person is important. This is the king of the whatever. It's like, I enjoy it when they kind of like don't do that.
It's worse.
Also bald.
You get the stereotypical PowerPoint presentation, as characters are informed about the jobs they've already been doing in a world whose circumstances they're already familiar with.
Yep.
Even great shows like Aka 13 do this. Info dumping is a type of exposition where there's a lot of data thrown at the audience explicitly, and generally it's frowned upon because it takes the form of the as you know style that I just outlined.
Exactly. The whole show don't tell, right? The example of, hey, she's the queen versus Your Majesty, and it's like, oh, why would he say Your Majesty? Must be the queen or something, right? I mean, yeah, explicit info dump like this is very jarring. It's just like, I would love to know information. Sometimes when the secrets are coming out, like in ReZero, right? Like, I want the secrets to come out. I want the explanation. So when they start doing exposition and doing lore drops explicitly, without hinting, I'm like super engaged. But quite often, when there isn't a huge mystery that you're just wanting the answers explicitly, and they're just explaining to you what's happening, exposition info drop is just so fucking boring and dry. But Eminence in Shadow did a very clever way. Eminence in Shadow does explicit exposition info drop. But every time they do it, I want you to go back and watch those scenes where it's fan service. You have ridiculous fan service happening. I remember the first time exposition happened. I think it was Alpha and Sid in the room together. And Alpha's yapping, talking about Cult of Diablos, the plans, whatever, yap. But the entire time, she is undressing Sid in the most provocative way. So a lot of the audience now, it's a very clever way where the Oonga Boonga audience who zones out during info dumps is now focused on the booba. Is it really, getting the exposition through their heads? Not really, but I guess it's a very unique way to keep the audience engaged, even if they're not absorbing the exposition.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. And Steins Gate's first episode has one of my favorite scenes because of how it uses an info dump, not only to inform us about each of the characters through the spoken word, but also in the act of going through said info dump. And we'll be finishing up the first episode because we've already done 2 videos on the first half of this Steins Gate opening, and I'm itching to move on to episode 2. Okabe's introduction to the audience through the medium of Alpaca Man is brilliant on 2 levels.
Yeah, this was weird as fuck. It's like he's like talking to Alpaca Man, and they're like, what are we doing right now? Alpaca Man is like a thing on the TV, and they're like, he's like talking to us? No, he's talking through a TV right now.
The medium of Alpaca Man is brilliant on 2 levels. And we'll get to those in a second, but the fact remains that this is exposition and a lot of it. In fact, practically every line that Okabe says in this scene is overt Exposition. From the name of the future gadget lab, its location and goals, the names and numbers of the sole 3 members, including their roles, interests, and nicknames. That's
right.
A lot of data, but I think the reason why many people wouldn't consider this an info dump on the face is because, firstly, the form of the sequence is so revealing about the characters, and secondly, because of how the conversation is transitioned from. When form and function are in lockstep, that tends to produce a pretty clever sequence. And sure enough, Okabe info dumping by talking directly to the audience in a pseudo fourth wall break says a lot about his character as well.
Okay.
It builds into the self-described mad scientist persona, the fact
that's TV that they're talking to. And yeah, Okabe kind of does whole, it's like, this is Future Gadgets Lab. I am Hoin Kiyoma. I am mad scientist. And you have, Daru just working away on his computer. What is he? Some sort of otaku, neat, who knows? You have Tuturu just knitting, just silently in the corner, very cute, complains about, when you change to Alpaca Man.
The fact that neither Mayuri nor Daru act like this is bizarre says that this kind of delusional attitude is...
That's right. This is a very accepted thing. They've been together a long while. It's also funny that the otaku neat, who would be the cringe one, by all means, is actually the voice of reason, because of how chuny and eccentric, Okarin is
the norm for him, and the mannerisms, shoutouts from the peanut gallery, and the sheer absurdity all create an entertaining monologue. I'd also be remiss to not point out that technically, Okabe isn't delusional at all, since the audience is in fact watching through the TV screen.
True.
And that is also the second reason why I really like this sequence, because of how meta it is. Beyond the clever positioning of the characters in the shot and the slight fisheye lens like we're truly looking through a CRT's screen, this sequence's function is to bring the audience up to speed, so why not have Okabe truly talk to the audience then? And on top of that, it transitions to a larger discussion that is, in and of itself, a meta joke based on the fact that Steins Gate is a fictional work, beginning with Mayuri saying that to Alpaca Man, aka the audience, that they may just be a game, speaking to the VN origin, and which culminates in Daru stating,
very interesting question. You're inside someone's screen, would we ever be able to know? So who is in the screen right now? Well, there's Alpaca Man, who's supposed to be kind of us, the audience, right? Because Okabe, he's like talking through the TV screen. But also, it could also just be the characters, like Daru, because we are watching them through a screen. Are they sentient? Are they aware?
This moves us from the info dump to standard character interaction, letting us learn about their relationships as they play out in real time as opposed to being told about them, and getting us back on track as we...
Yes, the show don't tell. Rather than saying, hey, this is Daru, the computer hacker man, he is an otaku neat, he browses 8chan every day. He has no job. Instead, what do we know? Daru loves to go to the maid cafe. Daru loves 2D. Daru cheats on his 2D waifus with Fadis, but it's fine because she is, it's just an exception. She's basically 2.5D. And rather than, them literally stating it, we can see through the actions, the behaviors of what kind of characters these are. Tuturu as well. She's very eccentric, right? Everyone's very eccentric in this show. I would actually say that Daru is the most normal one compared to the other two of Tuturu and Okarin, right? Which is, again, so funny to me because Daru should be the, the weird one by conventional means of what it's like an otaku need is. And then you have, Tuturu, who is, again, kind of an airhead, very cute, very pure, yet seems to have like an instinctive awareness of who she is and what Okabe is to her.
We learn about the inconsistency in Okabe's memory and everyone else's. Steins Gate makes the info dump feel like a natural part of Okabe's character, and that's a pretty fantastic solution to introducing exposition. And the way by which it's integrated is something that would really only work for a story like Steins Gate. To say it as clearly as possible, if you have to info dump, and sometimes you do for pacing, this is the prime example on how to do it properly.
Okay.
Making it say something about the characters involved by the act of going through the motions, clever visual direction to keep the audience engaged, and keeping the pace quick in both the dump and the comedic asides.
About like 5% of the audience watching this can appreciate this though. Even myself, like I don't think I fully appreciated this until he really called us out of explaining the different points, right? How about you guys in chat? Did you even think about this? No, everyone's probably just looking at it and saying, what is he doing right now? Who's he talking to? Is he talking to us? Why isn't alpaca on the screen? Anyways, that's gonna be the normal reaction for like 95% of the audience who are just watching it. Then you have the intellect, right? You have the big brain anime connoisseurs with PhD thesis levels of writing essays about topics like this.
Of course, you can't just copy Steins Gate's format full freight, because it feels like it's a part of the story's DNA. But understanding the core of what makes this scene work is certainly applicable elsewhere. Last time on Operation Yggdrasil, I talked about how the second half was the character focus half, and I stand by that, but I want to point out that it's limited in its scope. The characters who we really get to know are the 3 lab members, with a brief introduction to Mr. Braun, as opposed to a relevant cast of about 9 that we'll eventually be dealing with. This isn't a meet the whole crew episode, it's a slow, methodical introduction that allows us to get to know Daru, for example. Not only through the information we're explicitly told, like his interest in dating sims, but also stuff that we're able to infer, like how he and Okabe bounce off of each other in conversation with the sarcastic digs and asides, which show off a close friendship even before we learn how long they've known each other. And
they're like high school friends, right? I think Daru even makes the point that like, we're not even that close, bro. We're not childhood friends. We kind of like knew each other from high school, and even then we didn't really hang out or something.
In spite of that short period of time. That also shows how Okabe values making a dramatic point.
3.5 years now, yes?
Ew. Why English dub? You just played the Japanese dub. Why are you playing English dub now?
That's how long you and I have known one another?
Even if it doesn't match with reality.
Only if we're counting the year and some change of high school and we were in different classes and never said a word to each other.
What I say, the high school thing. I remember these details.
Details.
And we also see that even though Okabe talks a big game, Mr. Braun is able to pull out the rug from underneath him, no problem.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even before this, right? What happens? Well, Okabe is in a fucking building for a conference of time machine stuff, and in the beginning I was like, is he really a scientist? Is he really like important and legit? And you get to realize that who is he talking to on the phone? Nobody. Who is the organization? Could exist. I think it might be CERN at this point. It might be real, but there's a lot of these things that's like, is this guy insane or not? And here's a really fucked up part, which is very interesting, is that what if his insanity and delusions of his Chunibyo behaviors actually manifest as the story continues? Because like stuff like the organization, CERN stuff, right? I don't know, man. Like I feel like it might be real at this point.
How protective Okabe is about Mayuri when Daru asks her to say something perverted, Mayuri's innocent nature best being shown as she nonchalantly calls herself Okabe's hostage, Okabe envisioning a younger Mayuri telling us that they're old friends. It's the small things with Steins Gate when it comes to the characters, but these little moments do a lot to inform us about them. Like how Okabe uses the bizarre to escape dealing with the incongruity in his memory between the opening section and what apparently actually happened. Stuff like this goes a long way to making the character interactions feel real, and part of why I like the partial introduction of the full cast as it's handled here.
Okay.
There are 3 things I want to point out before we finish this video. The first is a point about direction. I love how the TV is the centerpiece in the opening sequence. First with Alpaca Man, then as the channel is switched to the news about the satellite, allowing us to see Okabe trying to write his recollection with Daru and Mayuri's, and indeed transition us to his declaration of Steins Gate as a way to seemingly escape having to deal with that, and then the TV dying, bringing us to Mr. Braun. The second is a writing and direction point. The way Mayuri describes the previous banana experiments, gel nana in the Japanese, just plain icky in the English, can't prepare you for the green monstrosities that seemingly have no
it actually was a gel banana
distinction between peel and fruit. And the focus on the characters' faces and the discussion of rotation in lieu of seeing the transformation is a total subversion for what should be astonishing even to them. The final point is fittingly the end of
I'm not smart enough to talk about this. I'm a retard. My brain is very small. Self-proclaimed Monkey King. Is it this deep though? I get what he's saying, and I think it's because I'm too stupid to appreciate this. I think that this is something that only true like film student level, like people that study and dissect and break down shows and understand specific mechanics and components of what makes art, what makes media can appreciate. I'm just watching and I'm like, I see what you're saying. Is it that deep? It might be, man.
The episode, which is a near perfectly directed cliffhanger in my opinion. As they enter the elevator and Okabe finally thinks to check Daru's phone regarding the text, we get this cool iris pull with the white to black centering us on them. The slow...
What the fuck is an iris pull? Wait.
phone regarding the text, we get this cool iris pull with the white to black centering us on them.
White to black center iris pull? The black outside, the white in the middle? Okabe's lab coat and hair color? Okay.
The slow integration of Gate of Steiner into the audio and the realization that the text went back in
to
time,
the past.
the doors opening to a new revelation.
And then Kurisu.
After a long episode of basically pure cicadas in the sound design, the music, the ticking of clocks, the crowd noise, the loud primal rumbling as though existence itself is coming undone, all to highlight the fact that Kurisu is alive, plus a point of view shot with a shaky camera, and everything cutting to black just as she starts to move her head towards the audience.
That was actually peak. Because leading up to this point is Okarin realizing that, like, yo, Kurisu died. What the hell just happened? Time stopped. And suddenly he realizes that, wait. My text went to the past? What's going on? The time machine bogus conference didn't even happen? Wait, what do you mean? Metal Upa gone? All of these little things that we saw in the original timeline, the world lines, right, is suddenly wrong because we've diverged. Because remember, John Titor's explanation of world lines diverging and how if someone came back from the future to save somebody, but that person still died, like different, world lines will diverge, and then the memories will also be erased, and things will kind of like adapt to like substitute for what is missing, right? And therefore, all the different things are now being rewritten, like the conference never happening, a satellite crashing to the side of the fucking building, but we clearly saw a smaller time machine thing in the roof. And then to solidify, with Kurisu showing up at the very end is because she's clearly dead. But if she is alive, then this is like definitive proof that, holy shit, something is happening.
The shaky camera and everything cutting to black just as she starts to move her head towards the audience. Hot damn, that is a cliffhanger. But hopefully not one for long, since we'll be talking about episode 2 next time on Operation Yggdrasil as we meet more of the cast, point out more of the cool production elements, and hopefully not have it broken into 5 different videos.
I wonder if he actually has an episode by episode analysis. That could be pretty interesting to cover as we go through the episodes, but that's pretty much it. This is a extremely big brain video that I cannot appreciate with my monkey brain, but hey, I try to keep up with it. Here's a link to the video. Please go give it a like if you enjoyed it. Go check out Mr. Replay Valley's channel. I'll see you next time.